In this video, I want to talk about how Warcradle Studios and TT Combat might have just saved the day. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. I spoke recently in a video, which you can see here, about two companies, Tor Gaming and Spartan Games, going out of business. Yesterday, news broke that Warcradle Studios, the new owners of Wild West Exodus, had agreed a deal to purchase some of the games that were owned by Spartan Games. These games were Dystopian Legions, Dystopian Wars, Armored Clash, Firestorm Armada, Firestorm Planetfall, and Uncharted Seas. I think at this point it's important to clarify that Warcradle Studios have not bought Spartan Games or their parent company Rebel Publishing. This means they're not liable for any of the fallout after the collapse of Spartan Games. They've only bought the IPs that Spartan Games produced, and notably not the Halo license. Also announced recently was that TT Combat, the company best known for their MDF terrain and more recently Rumbleslam and Carnivale, bought the Relics IP and will continue to support the game. Now this is great news for miniature gamers who'd bought into all of those games and had a stack of miniatures and didn't really know what the future held for those games. Both companies have pledged their support to the future of these games, with Warcradle Studios most notably saying how they really do love the game and don't have any plans to massively overhaul the rule set. Now the thing that stuck out for me and hasn't really been addressed yet was, what does this mean for the current games that these companies produce? TT Combat had traditionally been associated with low-cost, high-quality MDF terrain and tokens. Rumbleslam saw them enter the miniature games market with a very successful Kickstarter and what it turned out to be a very enjoyable small-scale game. They recently picked up the game Carnivale, which was originally produced by a Spanish company, Spartan, who went under in 2016. They recently ran a successful Kickstarter where they raised £130,000 against a £30,000 target. Warcradle Studios are a relatively new entity. However, they are part of the Wayland Games Group, which is Europe's largest independent retailer of miniatures and tabletop games. They recently acquired the Wild West Exodus game from Outlaw Miniatures and have had a reboot of it with a brand new 2.0 set of rules that are due out any day now. They've also been very heavily promoting the game this year, so if you've been to Salute or UK Games Expo or even Gen Con, you'll have seen a lot of support from Warcradle Studios. Now this is where my question lies. Relics was never really that popular a game to start with, and one of the criticisms levelled at Spartan Games was that they seemed to flip between projects, never really supporting any one particular game. Now my worry is, especially for Warcradle with all of the different IPs they've just acquired, is does this detract from their existing IPs, especially when they're in the early stages of development? These are two very new miniature games companies, and are they trying to run before they can walk? Now at this stage, I know very little about what the future holds for Relics and Dystopian Wars and Firestorm Armada and even Uncharted Seas. However, both companies are in the very early stages of their own IPs with Carnivale and Wild West Exodus, and they potentially risk rocking the boat before their current games have even got a foothold in the miniature games market. Games Workshop are a huge company by comparison. They have many divisions that focus on certain aspects. So for example, they have a specialist games division who don't get involved in 40k for example, and they have Forge World who don't get involved in writing rules for Blood Bowl. Games Workshop are however the exception, as even just in their headquarters in Nottingham alone they have over 600 employees. TT Combat and Warcradle Studios are still relatively new companies and don't have the resources of Games Workshop obviously. My worry is that trying to juggle too many plates in the early days of lots of different game concepts might just mean that some of them plates fall and nobody wants to see anybody fail. Both Carnivale and Wild West Exodus are two games I'm really interested in seeing doing well. Carnivale's very peculiar theme, shall we say, is something that interests me, and the card mechanic from the 2.0 version of Wild West Exodus is something that we've not really seen before outside of something like Malifaux. These are both welcome additions to a miniature gaming market. However, I do worry in a quite a saturated skirmish game market that what these companies need is a focused approach and a thriving community. Spreading themselves a little too thin might just be the end of it before it's even started. Now on the very unlikely chance that somebody from TT Combat or from Warcradle Studios watches this video, I'd love to come and see you guys and have a chat and understand what your future is and how you want to try and balance all of these different games together. Because some companies like Mantic Games seem to be able to manage to pull it off, trying to have many irons in the fire. However, some companies, like Spartan unfortunately, don't seem to be able to manage to give those games the focus they need. So please guys, get in touch and let me know how you're going to manage this. So over to you folks, what do you think? Are these games you're interested in? Are you worried about what might happen? Is it something that because you're 40k only, you're not really too interested in it? Or are you just watching from the side to see exactly how this all pans out? Are you interested in playing Wild West Exodus? Is Relics something that you used to play? What about Dystopian Wars? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And remember, I always try to reply to everyone. So, thanks very much for watching. Why not subscribe if you haven't already? And I'll see you in the next video.